Hello and welcome to She Builds Intimacy with Her Husband podcast. I am your host, Leona Carter. Each episode, we are encouraging, inspiring, and empowering women to build intimacy with their husband through the power of dating again. And so listen, if you are a wife, you're laying next to your husband, yet you feel miles apart, then let me help you take the next step to really build intimacy with your husband. You can go to LeonaCarter.com to take the next step.
Awesome. Jocelyn, thank you so much for joining us today. So take a minute and introduce yourself and let us know who you are.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, Coach Carter. I am Jocelyn Kirkland. I'm many things, but this most recent project is a sex educator. I have written a book. It's called Complexities of Ecstasy. Long story short, I was a whole grown married woman having an active sex life and not having orgasms. And I didn't know who to talk to. I told my husband, I was like, well, we married now, you just stuck with broken equipment. But he's like, you're not broken. But I remember in that season, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't ask the doctor. It wasn't medical. I didn't talk to my friends because prior to that point, we hadn't started talking about sex. So I mean, maybe there's a reason for that, you know? And so from that place, I just remember what I did, why I did it, and how that all took place. Fast forward, I became a multi-orgasmic woman. Praise the Lord. And I said, you know what? I need to illuminate this journey for other women. I know I'm not the only one that was there, but I also have the lived experience to come out of that place. So, I mean, that's the birth of the book.
Wow. So you said a lot. So, and that is, you know what, it's more common than we think, right?
Absolutely.
It's more common. But, you know, and then as wives, we have to try to communicate this to our husband without hurting their feelings, and they think it's them. And so that's amazing. And so you finally, you know, so how did you know that it was time to actually start connecting and reaching out to someone?
Knowing when I identified the problem, you know, like Jocelyn, you are not, something's wrong here, but why? And I couldn't give myself a why. You know, like it's one thing to not seek out the help or to not see, why am I struggling to even converse with myself? So that was the beginning of it, which is why the book is focused on conversations, initially being the one with yourself to even free you up to have it with your husband, you know, to have that dialogue or even to seek out if you need to for other people as well.
That's amazing. That's what I say, even start the dialogue, because having, you know, conversations with our husbands about the bedroom is not always easy. You know, you want to, you know, be careful of how you say it and not assassinate their character while you're saying it, all the things. And so, you know, even in my journey, you know, we didn't know the difference between having sex and building intimacy. And I thought because I was doing one, I was automatically doing the other, but that was not the case. And so you actually, you know, took steps to kind of first have the conversation with yourself so that you can position this conversation in the book. Now, how was that book writing process? So you have Complexities of Ecstasy. So first of all, who is this book even for?
So the book is for women, first off. Now, anybody can read it, but the fellow vagina havers, that's who the book is for.
Make it plain.
As a woman of faith, the women of faith will relate to a lot of the things that I'm saying because they share some similar experiences and also a similar life frame and value base. However, just like, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Dave Ramsey books about finance. He's like, listen, this is what I believe, but these principles hit for anybody. And it's kind of that same vibe. So my goal is to just lay it out, but whoever the reader is can gain from the practical, scientific, and even just social material that's there.
That's amazing, because I, you know, with with books, of course, you're targeting a specific reader, but the principles remain the same across any reader or genre or things like that, right? So same with, as a faith-based woman, treating others as you want to be treated, not treating them how they treat you, right? And so it's a universal principle, whether you're using it in business and parenting. So I get that concept. How did your husband respond? Like, he's like, first of all, you're taking your bedroom on a global journey, right? On the public stage. How did you get to the point where you say, babe, by the way, we're gonna write a book about this, and just want to make sure you're okay. Like, how did that conversation start with him?
That's good. So the conversation was born the moment that I was brave enough to say, like, hey, by the way, something's right with me. But he has always been understanding and present. So in my journey, as I took the steps necessary to learn more about myself, and as we came together, figured some things out, the progress was popping. So he didn't really care. Even at the end of the day, I'm not an easily embarrassed woman. And also I'm going to glorify God in any way I can. If it means me outing myself or potentially being embarrassed for the glory of God and for other people to get off, I could take that,
What? That's amazing, because, for me, and for many women that I serve, there's a sense of shame.
Yes.
In the beginning, for me, what did I say? I should know better as a wife. Man, I got to work on me.
Well, you don't want to embarrass him, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was, and then, so there was some years of getting over that. And then embarrassment, like I married a great guy. There is no doubt. I tell everybody I got the last great guy on the earth. Listen, so there's no doubt. And, because I knew from the wedding night, something wasn't right. I knew it was never him, right? It was never him. It was always me. But trying to walk that journey, babe, it's not you. I promise, is really me. You know how they say, it's not you, it's me. It really was me. Really... right? I promise you. But really having that, getting to the level of really having that conversation, and then having supportive husbands, man, it means the world, right?
Absolutely.
How did you know? What was that one act or, kind of revelation that that your husband might have done that you was like, okay, yep, we're going to be okay. He's going to support me. We got this. What was that one kind of moment that
there was so many. I think the one that comes to mind as you asked for one was, as I found courage to try to fix things, his support. At every turn, he, can we do a little more of this? He was there. A little less of that. He was. So I found that every little bit I gave, he was right there with me in the journey. So it removed the anxiety of me trying to navigate alone. So that I think was the biggest thing. But even prior to that, finding the courage within myself to address it. Finding the courage to say, I know there's more. Let me go get the more. As opposed to a lot of people, and especially clients that I've worked with, or even books and articles that I've read, women have decided this is my fate. There are so many women, I just don't orgasm, right? The scientists, the books and stuff, they even tell you some people just don't, and they just accept that as life. So finding the courage to say, even though I'm not, I still got the faith to think I could work some kind of way.
Right.
And I could over and over again.
Right. God's a healer. Come on now. And that's because, so many women, they, and I can say me, I'm in that boat. You think you're alone. You think no one else is going through what you're going through. But
absolutely,
when I finally got the courage, I knew there was a healing journey. And because the struggle was so real, I said, wait a minute, I got to a point where I can't be the only one going through this, right?
Of course not.
There has to be, right? And so once you finally open, and my coach, Dr. Cheryl, says your story is about you, but it ain't for you, right? And so understanding that my story, your story is greater than just you sitting on it just, one day, right? And so
That's
really
right.
empowering, it's amazing. And so what would you tell women that, they have not come to the level of courage yet to really even start having that conversation with themselves, because they're still in denial?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get people to first having that conversation with themselves?
Well, the first thing I would say is buy my book. That's the first thing. But no, really, I think it's subjectively written, where even if you're not yet to a place where you even want to begin the journey, you can read it objectively and identify the walls within yourself. Why you feel like you can't change things. What walls are there to even have you positioned where you are, especially concerning religion and faith. Like, some people really don't believe that God has any role in their sex journey. But I'm like, girl, you can pray about your sex life, and even tips and tricks. Like, the Holy Spirit communicates with us as women of faith. He'll hook you up, like you'll be in tune to a place where you can address something sexually that go right in line with everything else.
Wow. You know what? Growing up, I was one that grew up in the church, right? Grew up in the church. And as my husband and I were dating, it was, they call them women of the church, the older mothers of the church. They were very adamant about us abstaining from sex until we got married, right?
Right.
But then once we got married, for me, that's when the struggle, I was like, hello, anybody? Hello, anybody? Once we got married, I couldn't find anybody with a flashlight. Like, it was like, hello, now I need, what do I do now? And so in my journey, there was never a bridge from virtuous to sensuous.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to transition literally overnight from one to the other. And so because of that, the struggle was 5 years at one point, and then 10 years at another level. The struggle was real until I realized, wait a minute, I actually did market research, and I heard from over 200 women in a 7-day period that were going through the same thing I was going through. And, it was a release. I was just like, yes, I knew I couldn't be the only one. And people were coming out the woodwork. And so, Jocelyn, what we're finding is this conversation needs to be had more, because it's not a lot of this conversation. And so what if somebody's in our position, your position, my position, and they want to start this conversation, but they really don't know where to start? What would you recommend to somebody to really kind of get the ball rolling if they're like, you know what, that was my struggle, but I'm ready to share my story, but I don't even know where to begin?
Yeah. Well, again, aside from buying the book, I would say identify the greatest concerns. So there are some people who know, I'm in my head. Like, I know that I'm doing dishes and counting the finances. This is where my problem is. There are also people who have physical restraints. It's just tough. It's painful, or, there are chronic illnesses or things that impede their ability to, engage in sex. And then there are things, a combination, but also, like you said, those religious blockages where they cannot wrap their heads around their sexual nature and the woman they've worked so hard to polish and become. How does she get so unkempt? How can she bring herself to do the things that I want to do or think I should be doing, but I can't do it because I don't know anyone who does? But it's because they're not talking about it. So you don't know what people are doing.
Right. That's good, because you don't know. It's about, you have to start telling your story, because you don't know who is going through what you're going through. One time I was in a room with there was a panel of men. They were all Christian men talking about, being, head of the household, being men in the home and things like that. And so I posed a question to the panel, and I simply said, how do you support your wife when there's barriers to building intimacy in the bedroom? And that was the conversation nobody talked about. I mean, they talked to men and finance. They talked about everything, right? But when I posed that question, one person said, well, first of all, hey, Coach Carter, thank you so much for posing that question. I've dealt with this. And do you know, by the time that panel was done, every last male up there has supported their wife in one way or another through this exact same three. Some were postpartum depression, some were illnesses, every last one of them had that story. But you would have never known had I not asked the question, right? So your neighbor is probably going through it. Your best girlfriend is probably going through, but she's not saying anything. And so, man, this is a conversation that definitely needs to continue. So I'm so excited that you can come on Hey Coach Carter TV today and really share this vital information. So first of all, how do people, get a hold of your book, and where can they connect with you if they have any more questions?
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, JocelynMKirkland.com. There you can pre-order my book. It will be released this summer on Amazon, but if you get it from my website, you can get a signed copy from me. Amazon will send it, but you can get it from the website. So that's the first thing. And then simultaneously, my Instagram handle is Jocelyn M. Kirkland as well. So they can meet me there. But yes, those are the places that you can find me.
Awesome. So again, folks, listen, write it down, tweet it, page it, text it.
Yes.
Complexities of Ecstasy.
Absolutely.
And it's a conversation that, it's carrying, it's continuing the conversation that, listen, Jocelyn's in the space starting the conversation. I'm in the space starting the conversation. So this book is just going to help you continue that conversation, right? With the blueprint of how to do it. And so I am super excited, Jocelyn. Thank you so much for being here. And I, hope that your launch is phenomenal, because it's time to help women make it do what it do. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to another phenomenal episode on the She Builds Intimacy with Her Husband podcast. Listen, if you're a wife who needs support in building intimacy in your marriage, make sure you go to LeonaCarter.com and take the next step. So today, I hope you've been encouraged, inspired, and empowered to build intimacy with your husband through the power of dating again. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And until next time, keep building intimacy. Bye-bye for now.